Hello everyone, this is Robert Radford from 50 Years of Chess. I hope everyone's well, happy, and those of you that play chess like me are having a good time. The person I'm going to bring to you today is a guy called Derrick. He used to play for Cabot Chess Club. I say used to because he seems to have stopped playing from about 2018 onwards. He went through a couple of years from about 2017 and 18 where he really sort of went downhill and it just wasn't happening for him anymore, and so I think he maybe got a bit disheartened with chess as it was. He was playing for Cabot Chess Club. I can't remember him ever playing anywhere else, and I played him a couple of times. We had one win each and one draw. Now, the game was played on the 12th of October 2010, about 15 years ago, or 14 years ago in a few months. And I was white in this game, and I began with d4. Just to let you know one other thing, at the time we played, Neil's rating was around 1773, and I was about 1870. It was a board one match, and I was playing for South Bristol, and he was, like I said, with Cabot Chess Club, so it was a Bristol league match. He replied with d5, knight f3, knight f6, bishop g5, e6, e3, bishop e7, c4, castle, knight c3, and we're kind of into the Queen's Gambit declined sort of opening at this stage. h6, bishop f4, a6, that's to stop me going from knight to b5 where I would be attacking the c7 pawn. c5. Now, I've done this sometimes throughout my career. Sometimes I've not, but there have been times I've done it and I've sort of had mixed results. Sometimes I've won nicely with it, and other times black has been able to push e5 at some time to break up that pawn chain, and then it makes it more difficult. So he plays knight on 8 to d7, bishop d3, rook e8. Now this is what I'm getting at, where the pawn gets pushed later. But this is also a Rai Lopez theme, where you have this situation where black pushes the bishop back to f8, and then he plays the g pawn out and plays the bishop onto g7. Castle, knight h5. So he's putting the question to my bishop, what am I going to do? I can't avoid losing it for the knight, whichever knight he decides to take it with. But I'm going to go to d5 because it's the least place where it's going to cause any disruption to my pawn chain. So he goes back. So I thought, okay, so I'll just make sure that in future I got a place where I can withdraw to with my bishop should it be under attack if he doesn't take it this time. So he's thrown in b5. He's looking at me going pawn takes pawn and then knight takes pawn on b6, which is a good square to have your knight on. But it also means if I want to, I can keep him shut in behind the pawns with his pawns, and he'll be cramped for space. So I played b4, played c6, which is great. That's really look at his bishop now. It's totally shut in behind his pawns. That's not good. I don't think that's good. So I played a4, bishop b7. There's no way I'm going to go pawn takes pawn, rook takes pawn, rook takes, bishop takes. There's nothing in it for me. I'd rather wait on that for him to go pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, then I got chances of going into b6 at some time. So I just threw in g4. I want to try and get him to understand that I'm going to attack him down his kingside. So he's played knight takes bishop, knight takes knight, and he's gone back with the other knight. He'd like to get all the pieces off, swapping them off. It is the kind of way Neil Derrick played Chessc. The more pieces come off, the more confident he would get that he would get a result of some kind. So I played f4 and said, well, if you want to take, you can do it. And he did. He took it. So I took my d pawn moment. So he pushed the pawn onto d4. So I played my knight into e4, which I wanted to do. I got this beautiful square on d6 where I can go with my knight. And he would have to give up something to not allow my knight to be encamped there, which is probably a bishop. And then I would have passed pawns and easily one endgame. So Stockfish is showing me 1.2 up on with the white pieces at the moment. Not enough to say it's a win, but it's a good sign. He's gone pawn takes pawn, which has actually put me 1.9 up now, even though I just lost a pawn. Isn't that amazing? So knight into d6, which is my plan. Yeah, the 1.9 stands. He immediately takes it off because he doesn't want it there. And I retake with the e pawn, not the c pawn, because remember I was saying about this business of opening up the bishop. This is what it was all about, always to keep him locked in there, and in there he will stay. So he's gone queen f6, so he's only got one active piece out on the board at the moment. Now I've locked in that part as well with a5. So those three pawns are now locked. The bishop's locked behind. I've got a pass pawn on d6, which, by the way, you never push on until you get into an endgame where it's going to be supported by something. Otherwise, if you push on, you're going to lose it, and it weakens the chain. So he's played g6, bishop to e4, homing in on that c6 square, so he can't move the bishop back to c8. So he's played the rook to d8, queen d3, rook d7. Now I'm 3.1 up with Stockfish. It's looking near one game now, but not quite. But I know which pieces I would rather have at the moment. There doesn't seem to be a lot of fun if you're the black player. You're just stuck behind your pawns and you're hoping you can hang on. Whereas white got all that space on the first three ranks. No cramping of any kind. So queen takes on e3 just to get my pawn back. Now the queen's gone back to g7. Maybe throw in f5, I don't know. But I've gone queen to f6 now, and I'm looking hard at that c6 pawn, which could drop. But he's had to move the rook across to protect it. So he's having to do everything I want him to do. And when you get someone in that situation, you can have some real fun. So queen now across the other side to d3. Bishop back. He's got nowhere else to go. He's at a stage now where he's just moving pieces around at the back and waiting for me to do something. Rook a2. So I'm not on the back rank. So if I did move my rook on the f1 onto, say, f2 or f3, my rook would drop because he could take it with the queen, and I'm not going to allow that. So rook to a2. King h8, rook to f2. Starting to shape up here now. Rook back to e8. Queen again looking at that c6 pawn, and he's come into queen d4. So queen d4. Okay, he's tucking my b pawn. I'm attacking his c6 pawn. I don't think it's clever at all to take his c6 pawn. You can swap the bishops off, and that's giving my good bishop for his bad bishop. So no, we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to defend the pawn with rook to b1. Rook to b1, and he's playing the rook back to c8 to give extra protection now for that c6 pawn. And queen, my king behind my rook and queen. And then we're getting near the stage now where I've got a very healthy 3.4 advantage with Stockfish for white. He's played rook a7, he's just pushing wood around. h4. F5. Finally wanting to open it up, and that's increased my chances of winning to 4.0 now for white with F5. Probably, I think bishop c2 is the right move. Yeah, I'm going to play bishop c2. And what's he going to do? Queen c4. So, he's not really offering me anything here. Nothing. I'm certainly not going to play g takes f and open up the g file, because he can swing his rooks across there in 2 moves. And I don't like that. e2 attacking the e-pawn, which he's defending with the queen at the moment. So he puts a rook there on e8, which is a huge mistake. I've now got a 5.7 lead, and at this point Neil resigned. But from early on, once I got the pawn on to d6 connected, is a lost endgame generally for black in these situations. So if you wonder maybe why Derrick resigned, I'll give you some idea. White plays rook d1 behind the passed pawn, and he probably plays rook across to g7 by his king, in case of pawn takes pawn check. But I'm not going that way. The next step would be then to bring my queen on e3. So there's a rook on d1, e2, and e3. And I'm going to win that pawn on d6, because I'm going to push d7 with the d pawn, and then the rook has to go behind the pawn, or it gets lost. And then I just take the d pawn, and he takes with the queen, and I take with the rook. So then the rook would be attacking the g pawn. If he should move the rook from g7, he'd have to, for a start, he'd have to defend it with his king first. By then it would be too late, because I would play rook to e7, threatening a rook swap. If he goes rook takes, pawn takes, and then rook takes on d1, I queen. So yeah, it's lost for black here. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a good day, what's left of it, and I'll certainly see you tomorrow, hopefully.